to another episode of Unapologetic with Dr. G, where I get to talk to some amazing people. And today with me, I have author Mr. Ken Gordon. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Dr. G. How are you?
I am good. So tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
As you said, I'm an author. I just released a third book. I have a book called Divorced But Still Dad, The Faith Principles of Fatherhood for Divorced Men. Another book called The Love of a Father, Faith Principles of the Power of a Father's Love. But with my most recent book, I went in a different direction, and it's a fictional book that is inspired by actual events.
Okay. And so what's the name of this book?
This book is called Bad Dogs, a Black Cadet in Dixie.
Is it really about dogs, or is dogs like a metaphor for
Kind of
something?
a metaphor. So the name of the fictional military university that it's about is Military University of the South, which the abbreviation is MUTS. And so you have bad mutts or bad dogs.
Okay, no, that's so good. So tell everybody what you are unapologetic about in this moment.
Yeah. So what I'm unapologetic about is telling this story. This fictional story that's inspired by actual events is about racism, and it's about the scourge of racism then and even now. And as you look at it, not much has changed. And so I'm unapologetic about needing to speak out, needing to talk about this original sin of our country and not just let it go away, not just let the moment pass, but rather talk about it in such a way that you don't see the people as victims, you really see them as victors. And granted, there's so much more that we need to be, that we can find victory in, but we have a lot of victory already. So I'm unapologetic about calling this out and talking about this.
So so this book opens up dialoguing about honest, difficult conversation.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's
And to your point, I'm unapologetic about the need for that conversation, because for too long we have people that are talking at one another. It's really time for one side to sit down and really start listening unapologetically. We know you didn't own any slaves. We know that, you don't have any in your backyard right now. But you know what? That doesn't mean that what happened to us and our ancestors is something that we can just forget. So there's a need for conversation. There's a need for listening. There's a need for empathy. And I'm unapologetically going to call that out and encourage people to go down that road.
wow, that's so heavy but so needed, especially given one administration that's leaving and what really came out. I think it's important for us to know who our non-supporters are. Let's
Absolutely.
say that our non-supporters are. And so I'm really interested in what inspired you to say, I'm going to put this on paper. And since you said it was based off of, true events, what really inspired you to just say, you know what, I'm going to choose to write this book now,
Mhm.
outside us needing to have this dialogue? What clicked and resonated with you to say, I need to tell this story?
So the Bad Dogs is really based on actual events that occurred in the mid 1980s,
Mm.
and they happened to me. And coming out of that situation, coming out of that military university, I began writing the book. This book is over 20 years in development. It took me over 20 years to write it. I would write a while, and then I would need to take a step back, and then I'd write a while. And what really triggered kind of the finishing of this is, within this book there are characters. And one of the characters was so affected by what happened, he actually passed away at a young age, at 39.
Mm.
About 4 or 5 months or so ago, one of the other characters that's represented in this book also passed away. And it was really in that moment that I really understood that racism impacts people so profoundly. Some people think that it's a situation that occurs and then you get over it, but you don't.
Mhm.
And there are too many people living with, I read a wonderful book once called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And there are too many people living with the trauma of racism. We've got to start telling the story. And so in light of this most recent administration, the one that is now passed, and what was going on in that moment with George Floyd and everything else, I felt a pull to put this on paper and get this out, because the question really at the end of the day, Dr. G, when history is told, is the question is going to be, what did you do in that moment? And I
Mm.
want to be able to say in that moment, I did something. I fostered conversations. I encouraged conversations that were cathartic, that were healing, not that were inflammatory, but that were healing.
Wow, that's some good stuff. I'm definitely very interested in reading this book. I'm very open about needing the dialogue, not necessarily from a male perspective, but from a female perspective, and changing the narrative of how Black women are seen and shown. And
Absolutely.
so I understand the need to have this honest and raw conversation and to put that out there. So as you were going through and living through this experience for
Mhm.
so long, and then you're saying, now I think it's time to tell this story. Were there any, I guess, was there any red tape that you had to cut through in order to have this discussion in this book?
No, I think the red tape was just a decision of whether or not I was going to tell it in a fictional manner, or whether I was going
Mhm.
to try to tell it, autobiographically, really. And the reason I chose to tell it in a fictional manner, inspired by actual events, was because what I don't want is, I don't want anyone, male or female, black or white, whoever they are, reading this and thinking, oh, that's just his story. I really wanted to make it everyone's story. And so, at the place where I graduated, there were African American men who went through this, but then down the road there were African American women. And there's, one of the African American women, she and I are very close. And when I first wrote the book and finished it, I sent it to her and said, tell me what you think. Tell me, does this speak to you? Because at the end of the day, this really is not about me and not about Ken Gordon. It's about a societal issue that affects more than just men. And it opens up a conversation for us that we can have across a number of different platforms and a number of different ways, that if a person allows himself to be enlightened by it, it will reach out to people that don't look like me.
Okay. And so for the people that don't look like you, what are you hoping that they gain the most from reading this book?
Empathy. And I actually say it in the acknowledgments. I actually say in the acknowledgments that my prayer is that if you have never gone through this, if you have never experienced this, if you have never known bad dogs, my prayer is that this book will help you understand or empathize with those who have, and understand that even if you haven't gone through it, it doesn't mean you can discount the experience of
Okay.
those who have.
Okay, so I'm going to go back just a little bit
Okay.
because you said that this book is different from the other books that you have written,
Mm.
correct? So why didn't you put this one before the other one? Or
So
the other two that you've written?
yeah, it was really just it was the first book, I went through a divorce, and I was in a place in that divorce where I was asking myself, how do I, as a Christian, how do I, as a preacher, as a pastor, how do I go through divorce in a way that honors God?
Mm,
And that was the moment that I needed to step into and to address and to answer. And I really wrote that book to really speak to all the men out there who have abandoned and who have gone AWOL on their responsibilities, not just to their children in that moment, but also to the mother of their children. I tell them in this book that just because you're divorcing the mother of your children, it doesn't mean that you're cutting ties with her or them. I believe that we're called as men to be protector, provider, and priest. And I believe that I have a responsibility to my children's mother, even beyond the I do and the I never will. I believe I have a responsibility. And I needed to lean into that. And so that's what really prompted me to write that book at that time. That book was published in 2017. For
okay.
me, while I was writing that book, it became really clear to me that there needed to be a clarion call to men to say, you need to step into and lean into being a father. For too long, people have really had this kind of characterization, if you will, of deadbeat dads. But that's
Mm,
partly our fault, because the
mhm.
good dads, are not standing up and saying, no, wait a minute, there's another narrative, there's another side. So it was really to encourage men to say, a lot of us are wonderful dads, but we need to help the mothers of the world understand that love, while it doesn't look like theirs, doesn't mean it's not there. And so these books really kind of pulled me based on my moment with my children and my divorce. And it was funny because once I was able to write those, and once I was able to deal with that hard issue, it really opened up. Now my heart is open. Now it opened up my ability to finish Bad Dogs.
Okay, wow. Oh, that's so the trajectory of learning to live in your truth.
Mm,
It really opens doors for, I guess, such a remarkable book like Bad Dogs to really even really come forward, because now it's like, oh, I can be uncovered. And
yes,
so now let me walk into what really needs to happen for our community of people.
yes.
So I think that's such a really great thing. So where can people get this Bad Dogs book at?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And if I can just say one really quick thing about
Mhm.
is this journey. Once it was almost like I was on this really narrow razor ledge. And once I really opened up and came to grips with my truth, it just opened so many things up, because now the next thing that's happening for me on the other side of, Divorce but Still Dad, The Love of a Father, and Bad Dogs is next month, the first of a 12-book children's series I'm releasing. And this 12-book children's series is all about men and their engagement with their families, not their presence, not men
Mhm.
being present. We don't need men present. I mean, people think they do, but what we need is we need men being engaged,
Yeah.
not just in the house, but actually in the house engaged. And so I've written a 12-book children's series that is really focused on men being engaged, and it has some threads in it. Threads like empowering women. As a father, you have a responsibility to empower your daughters. Treating the children's mother like a queen. Whether you're married or not, it's irrelevant. That's the
Yeah.
mother of your children, your seed. You owe it to her to treat her like a queen. Being modeling to your sons what a man, what a responsible, godly man looks like. And so it has these themes in it. But to your point, it was once I was able to really face my truth and really speak my truth that I found that my heart just opened up, and this love for men and love for family and love for children and kind of encouragement to say to them, hey, you need to embrace being a dad, and you need to be engaged. So anyway, so I say all of that, but yes, you can find me on Amazon, iTunes, the Audible store,
Okay.
in any number of different places.
And then how can people connect with you?
So I have a website. The name of the website is Dads of Faith, DADSOFFAITH.com. Dadsoffaith.com is where I'm really focusing on calling out to the men of today to be dads of faith. It doesn't matter what your faith is. It's not central to a Christian faith. It is just dads of faith. And that faith is believing in you, believing in the power of your family, believing in all your children can be, and believing that a dad's greatest responsibility is to leave a positive legacy and positive memories for his children. So www.dadsoffaith.com. You can find me, and you can also find information on my next several books that I'm writing.
Okay. Is there any social media that they can connect with you at, or just your website?
So you can see from all of this, I'm an old guy, right? So
No,
I'm
it's so
I'm
fun. I just want to make sure
I'm
I
working
want
on
to
the
make sure
social
people get
media.
home with you.
I
Okay. Well,
do I do have a Facebook page, Dads
okay.
of Faith Facebook page that's out there.
Okay.
So if you go to Facebook and you type in Dads of Faith, it'll take you to my Facebook page, and I do a lot of announcements, a lot of information.
Okay.
We have some great videos on there about a number of different things. I also at Dads of Faith Twitter. I can't tell you I tweet all the time, but I try
Yeah.
to do my best. But
No.
yeah, so certainly Facebook and Twitter, you can find us there. And we are trying to lean into the millennial, zillennial kind of a thing. So
Okay. All right. Well, you all make sure you check out his book and connect with him and get in touch, because there, let's start having these honest conversations, and then also just get to know and build your own faith. So
absolutely.
that until the next time, that was your unapologetic moment with Dr. G.